What's up, friends? 1984 was so jam-packed with good music. I've already done over 2 hours worth of talking about the music from 1984, and I'm still not done. So now I'm going to go over the last run of hard rock and heavy metal from that year that I had missed. Go find my other 1984 videos where I go over all of the big ones that I obviously are on everybody's list, Iron Maidens and Judas Priest and all of that kind of stuff. Uh, First one I want to talk about is a guy named Robin George, who I'd never heard of. He had a song in 1984 called Heartline, and coincidentally, I just learned his name because he just passed away, and I was like, how do I not know who this person is? And Heartline is a cool pop rock kind of song, but when I looked into him a little bit, man, this guy had played with Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy. He had played with Robert Plant. He had played with Glenn Hughes. He played with David Byron from uh, Uriah Heep, and just never got his big break. The biggest he got was this Heartline song from 1984, and so weird. He was a good singer, great guitar player. He was a good looking dude. He had the right connections, and just weird how sometimes it just never works out. I hope he didn't really lead a rough hard life, because he deserved way more than he ended up. Another band that never really got big from 1984. They came out of Canada, I think, and a band called Headpins. That I've seen their albums before. I had no idea this girl, Darby Mills. She just has a powerhouse voice, real scratchy. She's kind of almost like a heavy metal Bonnie Tyler, sort of, I guess. But I saw this documentary that they had made, and she had given up music after their big run in 84, 85. I think they got to tour with a bunch of big bands, and the band broke up, and she kind of gave up on music to go and raise a family and just live her life. And now she's trying to get back out there, and she's been playing for a couple of years. Her new husband is like kind of her manager, and maybe plays in the band. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But good for her, man. Good for her. I'm glad they're back around, and good, not really rags to riches story, but good redemption story, I guess you could call it. 1984, Sammy Hagar had his biggest album, which is funny that it's also the year that Van Halen had their biggest album, because by the next year, Sammy Hagar had joined Van Halen, and that was a big coup in music. Nobody could really understand why Sammy Hagar would give up on his solo career to join this big band, but it all worked out. The VOA album was huge. I Can't Drive 55, and other songs on there that I liked were Swept Away and Two Sides of Love. That should have been a huge hit. I don't know why it wasn't. Another band is called Orion the Hunter, and it was a side project by one of the guitar player from Boston that wasn't Tom Schultz, the other guy, Barry Giroux or something. I can't remember. Uh, but Boston was taking like 6, 8 years to put out their new album. And so this guy went off and did his own solo band. And it's a sign of its time. They had a video that I saw that was kind of funny. The vocals are great, but it's straight up Boston. It's straight up Boston vocals, real high, soaring, clean vocals, and the songwriting is straight up 80s. The guys were doing that thing that every band that was making videos in 1984 did, and they were terrible actors, and so it's a little weird and awkward, and mullets for days, and a couple of the guys in the video, what's rubbed me the wrong way was they have long curly hair, and one of them you could tell he's covering up a bald spot by having his hair down like this over his bald spot, and it's long and curly, but it's real, like, it looks wet. It looks like oily or greasy or something. It's like, remember that episode of Seinfeld where their shower heads, they were conned into buying those shower heads, and everybody's hair was like listless and terrible. It just reminded me of that. Terrible video, decent song. Next we got Savatage, one of my biggest influences, one of my favorite bands of all time. One of their might have been their first, was it their first one besides EPs? Dungeons Are Calling. All of the things that I love about Savatage are already there. They have the big doomy, echoey voices, and the writing is already there. Chris Oliva is already he's a hotshot guitar player right out of the gate. Rest in peace. The production could have been a little better. It definitely sounds like early 80s heavy metal. And they obviously got way, way, way better with their production and their writing. The next album I want to talk about is Accept's Balls to the Wall. And I don't know why this wasn't on any of the top albums of people that I like heavy metal stuff from 1984. Accept is definitely a cornerstone of heavy metal, and especially that's their biggest album. But the cover leaves a little to be desired. The hairy man leg, and obviously he's facing the wall because the balls to the wall. So the cover is a little gay, and the song "Balls to the Wall" it's a little gay. And I got to looking at there's another song on there called The London Leather Boys. Gay! I'm just joking though. It's hardcore freaking metal. And they're still around doing stuff. Obviously, Udo Dirkenschneider is not their singer still, but Wolf Hoffman has still got the band going, and Udo is doing two bands. He does original stuff with his band Udo, and he does the old Accept stuff with a band called Dirkenschneider, who also has original Accept member Peter Boltz in it. So that's kind of fun. I'm glad those guys are still around. 1984 was when 74 Jailbreak from AC/DC came out. I almost said AC/DC released 74 Jailbreak, but actually I think they were tapes that somebody else owned and kind of released them, and it was real confusing to me as an early fan of rock and roll because I didn't know that AC/DC had lost a singer, and I didn't know Brian Johnson and Bon Scott were two different people. So hearing 74 Jailbreak, it was a little confusing the sound of it, but the song is really good. And the rest of I think it's more of an EP. The other few songs on there are just blues covers. They do an excellent version of Baby Please Don't Go. Triumph had a song called Follow Your Heart. I'm a huge Triumph fan. I'm a huge Rick Emmett fan. And I kind of missed that one. I went back and listened to it, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I don't know why it didn't stay on my radar very much. Twisted Sister, The Price. That's a beautiful song. Obviously not as iconic as We're Not Gonna Take It or I Wanna Rock, but it was the ballad single from Stay Hungry. And I'm going to do a cover of that one too. It's such a good song. Honeymoon Suite had New Girl Now, which is kind of hair band adjacent. Kind of like the same year you had Turn Up the Radio by Autograph. They were kind of hair band adjacent. Great song. New Girl Now is such a good song. I wish more people remembered that one. Zebra had their second album, a song called Bears, and there was a lot of good stuff on there. It's not near as good as their first album, but Stone Fury, there's another band that I listened to a lot. Not back in the day because I didn't know about it until the lead singer Lenny Wolf had went off to do Kingdom Come in '88, I think. And so I retroactively learned about Stone Fury. It's more of a pop-based thing. It was Lenny Wolf and some other guy, Barry something, I think. But that voice, man. That Lenny Wolf voice. No matter what kind of music he's singing, it just goes right to my heart. Kiss is Animalize. Big hit with Heaven's on Fire. I think it's a Desmond Child song. Desmond Child had got his first big break helping Kiss write I Was Made for Loving You. Obviously, this is a year or 2 years before he started working with Bon Jovi and Aerosmith and all of the other bands. I think Kiss is the one that got Desmond Child like up and running in the rock world. But I'm surprised that it wasn't on any of the heavy metal lists that I saw for 1984 either. I think a lot of people try to downplay the 80s Kiss because they want to glorify the 70s makeup Kiss. And my hot take is I like 80s Kiss way better than 70s Kiss. It was just my era, and I just like it better. Animalize was the second album after they had taken the makeup off. Lick It Up was 1983, and they were having big hits. I don't know why it's not on anybody's list. Gene Simmons was also breaking out. I mentioned in the movie list that he's was in Runaway with Tom Selleck. And he was also producing a lot of bands, which he kind of always did, but his first bands that he produced were like Keel and Black and Blue, which is where they got eventually the new Ace Frehley in Tommy Thayer came from Black and Blue. And I didn't think I really knew a lot of those songs, but I went back and listened to some of the Black and Blue stuff, and I knew more of those songs than I remembered. They never really got real big. Other bands from that time that were just starting, Jafria, who had a little bit of a newsworthy thing because their guitar player, Laney Cordola, wow, such a hotshot guitar player. I have his solo album and it's so good. But they were opening up for the Deep Purple Perfect Strangers album or tour, and Richie Blackmore had him kicked off the tour because that guitar player was too good. You also have the first Stryper album. Mama's Boys was a group of brothers from somewhere, Holland or Finland or somewhere like that, that were a hard rock band, and they did a cover of a Slade song called Mama We're All Crazy Now, because Quiet Riot had made Come On Feel the Noise a big hit, so they were going back and finding old Slade songs. Well, they did Mama We're All Crazy Now. Quiet Riot also did Mama We're All Crazy Now the same year or right after that. So it never got real big, but Mama's Boys was another big band. Loudness, Crocus, Man of War. Oh my goodness. That stuff did not age well. Fastway was Fast Eddie Clarke from Motorhead. And they were kind of in between their big song and the Trick or Treat soundtrack that they did, where they're two big, the Say What You Will from their first album and the Trick or Treat song, where they're two big peaks. Well, they had an album in 1984 too. And speaking of Motorhead, they had an album, Nazareth, April Wine. We're still putting out, all those old bands were still putting out albums. Armored Saints' first album came out, Can You Deliver? John Bush was originally asked to join Metallica in 1984. He would have been the singer on Ride the Lightning, which you can imagine a alternate universe where John Bush was the singer for Metallica. You had your trio of badass metal chicks. Lee Aaron was the Metal Queen. She had an album called The Metal Queen. Dora Pesh was first album with Warlock, Burning the Witches. And Lita Ford, that was me and my buddy's best shit. Her second album, Dancing on the Edge, was her first album. Out for Blood was her first album, and Dancing on the Edge was her second. I think it was 1984. I think we got into it a year or two later, but Lita Ford was my crush for forever. And Dora. She was up there too, but oh my God, we love Lita Ford. Hanoi Rocks put out their last album, Two Steps from the Move. They would have been humongous had Vince Neil not killed their drummer in his little accident at the end of the year. Great White's first album, Lizzie Borden's first album, Saxon. Saxon's a weird one. They're a British band that, if you look at it objectively, I don't know what the difference between Iron Maiden and Saxon was, but Saxon still became an underground thing, and heavy metal fans loved, while Iron Maiden went on to become like the biggest band in the world as far as heavy metal goes. They were the pinnacle of heavy metal at that time, and I don't know. Was it the songs? Was it the I don't know. They had a distinctive front man, so it's not that. I don't know. They just sometimes it just doesn't work out for some people. Saxon, they're still around too. Helix, that was another one. If you know the Trailer Park Boys, they make the joke. They make jokes about Helix. They were a heavy metal band from Canada. They had this song called "Rock You." Give me an R, give me an O, give me a C, give me a K. What you got? Rock. What you gonna do? Rock you. Cheesy as shit. Cheesy as shit. I thought that was cheesy back then, and it has not aged very well. That's why the Trailer Park Boys make fun of it. Joe Satriani's debut EP came out that he had funded with credit cards, and if he hadn't become a success, he would be in massive credit card debt probably for the rest of his life. But I never heard this EP. I think it's all guitars doing all of the sounds and everything. Obviously, I got into him. His first album was Out of This World or geez, I forgot what it was. Obviously, Surfing with the Alien was the big one, and I'll talk about that extensively when we get to 1986. But yeah. The last one that I'll mention is a band called Madam X, who was Roxy Petrucci, the drummer that went on to be in Vixen, and her sister that was a hotshot guitar player. Shoot, I forgot her name. But they retroactively got a lot of attention because it was the band that Sebastian Bach joined before he was in Skid Row. And it's kind of typical dated, lame 80s heavy metal. Not very good. They had a song called High in High School, which was just dumb as shit. But 1984 was an interesting year because you had all of the older 70s bands that kind of were still viable or reinventing themselves. And you had all of the newer bands that were just coming out that the synergy was just great. You had all of, like I said, people like Gene Simmons producing Keel and Black and Blue, and you had Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, the Scorpions, Deep Purple, all of those older bands. And then you had all of the newer bands like Rat and Dokken and Wasp and Twisted Sister. And it was just a perfect storm for heavy metal in 1984. There was no new music from Motley Crue or Ozzy because both their albums came out in 1983. I think Shout at the Devil was even 1982 maybe. But they were on tour, so they were still in it. Dio, I forgot to mention Dio was another one that was out there still doing stuff. Whitesnake. So you had all of the old guys that were in new bands. So you also had like Hotshot. You had people like Whitesnake and Dio, and they would always get the best guitar players and bass players from younger bands, and then it was just a great synergy of music in 1984. It's just, I don't know if there can ever be anything like that again. So anyway, I appreciate you sitting through me rambling about this stuff. Give me a comment below if any of this stuff resonates with you. And I'll talk to you on the next one.